Okay, so if you are on TikTok and maybe you be in the same corners as me, you may have seen a video about this black woman who is getting married and she was talking about her wedding dress, right? Now, first of all, I could tell by the way that wig was sitting. I was like, this is not a black American woman. Now, let me be fair. As you know, as far as diaspora wigs go, hers was one of the better ones. Like, I seen some horrible wigs, y'all. I swear to God. Oh my God. Wait, I'm so sorry. I recorded a video like last week. I'm gonna put the link up here. When I went to this African store, when I tell you this lady wig, I almost screamed when I saw her. Like, what the hell is that on your head? Like, I kid you not, it was the worst thing I've ever saw. Like, why would you even fucking purchase that? Like, what? It was this braided wig, and it was like these little teeny braids that didn't have no parts. And then also it was like a bowl cut. You know how white people used to put a bowl on their head and cut around? Like, I don't know. I was just like, what the hell is that? So as far as diaspora wigs go, this woman's was one of the better ones. Don't get me wrong, but there was still something off about this wig. I could still tell that this was a diaspora wig, okay? So anyway, this black woman, she posted this post talking about how she's getting married and how she does not like the trend of immodest wedding dresses, so she made her own. Now, I'm gonna tell y'all the truth. I stopped right there because that wedding dress was busted as fuck. I commented, I was like, you look pretty, but that wedding dress is fucked up. And then I went on about my business, right? I didn't even make it to the end of the post because the end of the post is what everybody was mad about. You know how like on TikTok you can do like slideshows? The last slide is what everybody was mad about. I did not even make it that far, okay? So I was like, girl, this dress is toe up. And then I went on about my business, right? But it turns out, okay, in the last slide of her post, and I only know this because I saw people like stitching it, duetting it. Folks have been cutting up about this, right? She was like, there is nothing uglier than an immodest bride. You know what I'm saying? Okay. So people were upset because they're like, you judging people and acting all high and mighty and so and so and so, right? So once I saw all these stitches and duets and yada, 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 I went back to look at her page, right? First of all, it turns out she's like a super religious Catholic woman, okay? All right. So let's look at the first video that I saved. Now, first of all, this is a different wig than the one that I was talking about. I saw in the initial post about her getting married. But y'all see what I'm talking about them diaspora wigs now, okay? So anyway, that's not even the point, okay? So she made this post talking about who loves you the most in the world and who provides all your needs. And then there's these pictures of a white dude, right? And clearly it's supposed to be Jesus. But this is my thing, okay? Does nobody else think that it's very weird to worship a God who doesn't look nothing like you? In fact, to worship a God who looks like your oppressors. Does nobody else think that's odd? Because like, I would respect Christians and Catholics and whoever else, at least if they was on their black Jesus flow. Like if you was like, oh, Jesus is black, he was born in so-and-so, hair like wool, skin like bronze, I respect that much more. Because at least you trying to paint it like, okay, I'm worshiping one of my own, okay? But for you to just willingly be like, yeah, I'm worshiping a white dude. Like, that don't make you, I don't know, that's kind of odd to me. I think it's very odd when people worship something that not only doesn't look like them, not only is not their own, but it's your oppressors. Like, huh? I think there's some real like weird like Stockholm syndrome type something about black people worshiping white gods. There is something very off about that. Like, these are the people. Like, can you imagine, imagine you in Africa in like the 1500s, bro, and some white people pull up to your shore and they treating you horribly. They whooping your asses, killing folks, snatching other people up to enslave them in God knows where. You know what I'm saying? And they showing you images of them and saying like, yeah, I'm better than you. This is how God looks. Worship me, so and so and so. And you still worshiping that image to this day. Like, something about this just give me the heebie-jeebies. But okay, let's move on, right? So, y'all, I saved this second video. And I'm going to be honest with y'all. I didn't watch the entire video when I saved it. I watched like half of it and I was like, oh, this is nonsense. Okay, then I saved it. I just watched the entire video. Y'all, let me just show y'all the video. So somebody calls her out. They're like, your ancestors weren't Catholic. And let me show y'all her response.
You see, comments like this always make me laugh. Like, what is this supposed to mean? My ancestors used to perform human sacrifice. They used to carry out human sacrifice. They sacrificed human beings to their pagan gods. Does that mean I should also engage in human sacrifice? Is that what you're saying? Make it make sense. You see, my ancestors used to kill twins. If not for Catholicism, I wouldn't be here today. Do you know why? My mom is a twin. She would have been killed. But thank God, because of Catholicism, my mom and her twin sister weren't killed. And so she got married and gave birth to me. Catholicism put an end to all of this. I'm not sure what you intended to achieve with this comment here of your ancestors definitely weren't Catholics. My ancestors were awful things before Catholicism. So, if anything, I'm grateful that Catholicism came to Igboland in Nigeria.
This is my thing. I'm not mad at nobody for being realistic about their ancestors because, I mean, what do you expect from primitive people? Like 1,000 years ago, imagine a twin is born. You probably like, oh my God, this is black magic. This is a clone or something. You know what I'm saying? I'm not mad at nobody for being realistic about that. You know, okay, cool, right? But it's the fact that she dogged her ancestors out like that and was like, yeah, I'm glad Catholicism came to Igboland. But she ain't say nothing about them white people ancestors who brought that Catholicism over to Igboland. She ain't say nothing about that because to this day, Catholics are known for raping little boys. Okay, so who knows what they was doing back when your ancestors was killing twins, right? I promise you, they was doing some messed up stuff as well, right? But you ignored all that to dog your own ancestors out and prove whatever stank ass point you had to prove. It's very interesting to hear an African woman say this. Like, she literally African, right? Because sometimes you hear stuff like this. No, y'all, like, my God. I made a video about this. I'm going to put the link to that video up there if I can remember the title of it. I was talking to this Caribbean guy, right? And he's like a super duper Christian. Oh my God. He's far gone, my friends. Okay. So we were having a conversation because first of all, he one of them Christians that can't let you exist. Okay. You know, he got to harass you and try to convert you every time he speaks to you, right? So I was like, well, you only a Christian because of slavery, because white people dragged your ancestors to the Caribbean and forced them to convert to Christianity, right? And he literally said, well, that's better than being a witch doctor in the Congo. And I was just like, okay. Because, like, what do you say to that? Like, what do you say to that, bro? Like, what? But that just goes to show you how deeply some people hate themselves. And we talking about black people. And how they will literally say, I'm thankful that white people tortured my people, enslaved them, colonized them. Because now I get to be a Christian or now I get to be a Catholic. And it's not just Africans and Caribbeans who say that sort of stuff. Because I'm drawing a blank right now. But I'm sure I've had this experience with African Americans as well. They'd be like, oh, well, you know. Oh, you know what? Oh, I remember it now. Hold up. The one thing I cannot stand about African Americans is that they will say that we were enslaved, in transatlantic slavery because our ancestors in Africa were worshiping false gods. All those African gods were false gods. So God punished us, for worshiping false gods, and that's why we were enslaved. Is that not the craziest shit you ever heard in your goddamn life? You know what I'm saying? I just made a whole video about that. I'm gonna put the link to that up there, right? Because, again, it's the same mentality. Oh, I'm cool with white people torturing and oppressing my ancestors, because now I get to worship white Jesus. It's the same exact mentality. It's off-putting enough when African Americans and Caribbeans have this mentality, right? But it's extra like, ooh, what when an African has this mentality? Because this is my thing. Okay, as African Americans and Caribbeans, we've been separated from Africa for 400 plus years. So a lot of us don't identify as African culturally or whatever. So when an African American or a Caribbean says something like that Caribbean man said, oh, well, that's better than being a witch doctor in the Congo, it's like he doesn't view himself as African. He's been in the Caribbean for the last 400 years. There's a huge disconnect there, okay? But when an African person says, you literally are African. You literally are African. You was never displaced from Africa. You identify as African to this day. And you still sit here and you dog yourself out. Like I said, it's bad enough for any black person. But, African Americans and Caribbeans, it's like, we've been removed from Africa for so long that that's not really our culture or anything anymore. So we talking down on that. But, I mean, that's not really our culture or anything. But you are African. This reminds me, y'all, I made a video about this too. I'm gonna put the link up there. The singer Tems, she's Nigerian, but I don't know if she's Igbo or whatever. Like this woman said, she's Igbo, right? But Tems released some picture. I don't know if it was for an album or what. Now, I forget the details of it, but in this picture, she was like in the water or something, and a bunch of people were like, oh, you remind me of the Nigerian goddess of water, whoever, whatever, right? And Tems checked them about it. She was like, no, I don't remind you of that. I remind you of Jesus forgiving all my sins, so whatever, bro. I forget the details of it. But it was like, girl, you're Nigerian and you checking people about comparing you to a Nigerian goddess. Is that not odd as like all get out? Like, even if you're Christian, okay, you're still Nigerian and that's still the gods of your culture. Like, I don't believe in voodoo, hoodoo, whatever. But if somebody was like, oh, wow, Flower Tower, you remind me of this voodoo priestess, whatever, I'll be like, oh, okay, that's cute, because African Americans practice voodoo, hoodoo, okay, whatever, right? But like, why would you be offended by that? Like, huh? Now, let's get to the third and final video I saved this woman, because would you believe it just gets worse and worse? Like, oh my God.
Negro, please. Didn't somebody tell you this was an all-white party? Huh? Someone get this jigaboo away.
Now, y'all can say what y'all want to about how, oh, it's just a joke, but I promise y'all, like, certain stuff just don't be funny. Like, certain stuff is just like, you just don't joke about certain stuff. Like, something like this, somebody joke about that, it's like, nah, you not joking, you serious. Because nobody who actually, like, really think like that would even be making a joke like that. Like, let me put myself in her shoes. Now, I'd never marry a white man, but let's pretend I would. Let's pretend I came across a white guy I liked and we got married. I could never see myself making no video like this, cracking whatever joke, because again, that's just one of them things that is, you joke about that and it's like, nah, you serious. Like, you're serious, buddy. This is just like weird. Like, again, let me imagine I'm marrying a white guy. And let's imagine he posted something like this, like, but in reverse, right? Like, oh, when another white person is marrying into your all black, in-laws, whatever, right? It would still be weird because it's like, you seem a little too happy to be a token. You know what I'm saying? Like, in her case, you a little bit too happy to be around all these white people. And, in the hypothetical case of a white guy doing this, you're a little too happy to be all in black people's space. Like, it's very much so strange. Anyway, it's heartbreaking to see how down bad black people are. And it's even more so heartbreaking. I'm about to tear up, y'all. Y'all know I'm a crier, but I'm finna get my period too, so it's extra tears, okay? It's even more so heartbreaking to see how mentally destroyed Africans are, bro. Because let me tell you, how it was growing up as a black American in America where there's so much racism, right? Now, y'all tell me if I'm the only black American who's ever had this thought, okay? Tell me if I'm by myself. Maybe I am, okay? This thought that, like, if it wasn't for slavery and white people and all of this stuff, we'd have been in Africa and everything would have been fine. Like, I should have been born in Africa and not, my ancestors shouldn't have been enslaved and everything would have been good, right? But then when you look at Africans and see how busted the fuck down they is mentally, and it's like, you didn't even go through the shit that I went through. And I'm not trying to downplay anything y'all went through, because I'm sure colonization was horrific. Like what they did to the people in the Congo, them Belgians and the rubber and stuff. Don't get me wrong. I know that colonization was horrific. But bottom line, end of the day, slavery was worse. It just is what it is, because we went through all of that. We was getting our limbs cut off and raped and all of this stuff. But we also got displaced from our home, and we're the minority in this new place. You know what I'm saying? So it's everything y'all went through in colonization, but then an added layer of confusion and just everything else, right? So it's like, y'all didn't even go through everything we did, but you still 100 times worse off, bro. And it's just heartbreaking, because it's just like, you know, let me think of the words. It's heartbreaking, bro. Like, have you ever heard of the Igboland? Because as an Igbo woman, I feel like you should have, right? So it was a group of Igbo people who I also consider to have been African American, because in my opinion, African Americans are anybody who was, you know, like, displaced due to transatlantic slavery. So I feel like anybody who stepped on a slave ship was African American. And of course, they would have also been African, right? But anyway, the Igboland was a group of Igbo people. They were forced onto a slave ship, and white people were so dumb that they didn't realize at first they should separate us so that we can't communicate with each other and plan revolts, but whatever, right? So these people, they took over the slave ship, and they ended up killing themselves. They walked into the water and they killed themselves because they didn't want nothing to do with what white people were trying to force them into, right? And can you believe that you, a Igbo woman in 2024, are sitting here talking about, I'm so glad that white people came to Igbo land to force my ancestors to be Catholics? Are you kidding me? When your ancestors fought their hardest not to have nothing to do with what white people were trying to force onto them. Like, y'all are just pathetic, bro.